puts that on his chest here with another crazy little bit of a card trick to show you guys. That's right. You guys like card tricks. I like showing them to you. So today we're going to show you a clever card trick that you could use to impress your friends and family. Make sure to do all the things that people do because we have to unorganically ask you in order to gain any sort of growth on YouTube. So without further ado, here's the card trick. You get a deck of medallion playing cards from Theory 11 that you paid entirely way too much for. But look at that shine, boy. Damn, they're shiny, boy. So yeah, so for this, we're gonna use these cards for our advantage, and it's a little bit of a clever card trick. Nothing too complicated. But here you give the deck one of these little mixes, you know, just to ensure to the spectator that you aren't prearranging the cards in any sort of way. So you give it a little bit of give it a nice little mix, right? So again, this should quell any notion in the spectator's head that this isn't a deck of cards that's ordinary, because it is. So here we're going to spread a couple cards to the spectator, and we're going to have them, you know, we'll do 6 cards. Piggy's crazy. We'll do 6 cards here. Sir, here I have some cards. I want you to think of one of those and not say anything out loud. Don't want you to say anything out loud. I just want you to think of one of those cards. You got one? Fantastic. And here's the clever part, because you tell the spectator that you want them to cut off about half the deck and hold it in their own hand. So the spectator cuts off, let's say, about half the cards and holds it in their own hand. And you remind them at this point that they could have thought of any single card they wanted in the entire deck. They could have really thought of any card. The deck was shuffled. They could have thought of any one of those cards. But instead, they have one card in their mind. As a matter of fact, they could have cut anywhere, right? They could have been holding any certain amount of cards in their hand. But you tell them you want them to deal cards onto your hand, one card for each letter of the card they're thinking of. So, for example, if they're thinking of the 5 of spades, they were to deal F, I, V, E, O, F, S, P, A, D, E, S, right there in your hand from the pile they cut to. So let's assume the spectator thought of the 2 of clubs. So they're going to deal cards onto your hand. So that's T, W, O, O, F, C, L, U, B, S. And at this point, you ask the spectator, sir, what was the card that you were thinking of? And the spectator's going to say, 2 of clubs. Here you remind them, it could have easily been the Queen of Spades. It could have just as been the 5 of hearts. It could have been the 4 of spades. But instead, you said 2 of clubs. You could have cut anywhere, sir. But of course, you managed to deal right to the card that you happen to have thought of. Oh, yeah, that's so exciting. I'm so excited. I just can't.
Okay. I like to talk to people deep into the night.
I play guitar.
I'm Eitan.
Hi, I'm Fred.
Hi, my name's Mike, and if you're sitting there watching this tape smoking your cigarette, well, hit the fast forward button, because I don't smoke and I don't like people who do smoke.
Heegaard and Browie. Heegaard and Browie. Heegaard and Browie. So if you guys are unfamiliar with those names, it's because you haven't been around in card magic long enough. Heegaard and Browie are the authors of a book called Royal Road to Card Magic, where this trick is from, known as Thought Stealer. So Thought Stealer has been pretty much republished in mostly every single children's book known to man in any sort of library that you could go to for some odd reason. But it's a trick that not a lot of magicians do. And it's something that I've taught on the channel. But you know what? I'm going to teach it here with this little variation on the method. Why? Because I think it's a trick you guys should perform. I definitely think it's a trick that doesn't get its worth. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. And make sure to check out Royal Road to Card Magic, where you can find this particular trick. And it's definitely a doozy. It's definitely a doozy. It does require a little bit of a setup, but the setup is easy to get into. And all it is 6 cards right here. So we have the 2 of clubs. That's the topmost card. Next, we have the 6 of spades. Next is the 5 of hearts. Unfortunately, you need it for this trick. Next is the 7 of spades. 4 of diamonds, and lastly, the Queen of diamonds. That is the order of the cards and the cards you need to accomplish this crazy trick. This crazy trick that's gonna get all the ladies on top of you. So here you get this stack and you put it on top of the deck and you're good to go. So from here you could just do a couple swing cuts. Notice what I'm doing here though. I'm keeping the fattest break I'm keeping it here so I can lift off at any point and just overhand shuffle, right? So what this does, if you haven't realized it, is that I'm swing cutting packets onto my hand, of course keeping a break, so that at any point in time I could just shuffle this half back to where it was, and the deck stays essentially preserved in the same exact order from the top. So if the top stock is preserved, a little bit of a nice false shuffle, something that pretty much looks like you're shuffling the top stock and then shuffling the bottom stock. Again, you're not going to call too much attention to it, but you're just going to do it in your hands as you explain to the spectator that you want them to think of one of these cards. So you spread off. Maybe I'll start with 4 and I'll go, I want you to think of one of these cards. Oh, you know what? We'll go crazy. I want you to think of one of these cards. You know what? Let's add one more to it. I want you to think of one of these cards, sir. Think of any one of those cards. And of course, the spectator at this point thinks of one of those cards, and you're going to see that it doesn't matter which one they think of because you're always going to be able to spell to it when you add 9 cards to this pile. That's the little bit of the hot secret here. So once the spectator is thinking of one of those cards, you're going to repeat that false shuffle that we talked about. And at some point in your shuffle, you're going to do is that you're just going to need to shuffle 9 cards on top of the deck. I know it sounds a little bit intimidating, but trust me, it's well within the reach of anyone. So at some point, what you're going to do is you're going to use your dirty thumb here, the thumb off. I like to do it in groups of 3. So in this case, I have one group of 3. I'll get another group, in this case, make 6 cards and drop it in the back. So now we have 6 cards on top of our little stack here. We have 6 cards. Lastly, we need 3 more. So I'll just get 3 casually, put it on top, maybe repeat the whole sequence one more time. But ultimately, I've shuffled 9 cards on top of that stock. And you see, let's say the spectator thinks of the 2 of clubs. So that's TWOOFCLUBS. Had they thought of the 6 of spades, that's SIXOFSPADES. So you see that each card could be spelled to, once you move them, 9th. I know at first it may seem a little bit intimidating to have to shuffle 9 cards on top, but trust me, while you're mixing the cards in this sort of way, it doesn't really look like much. It just looks like you're continuing to shuffle. So it should just look like a natural, casual action. But that sets you up for what you need to do, which is shuffling 9 cards on top of this. And this pretty much becomes a self-working trick. However, there are some points that you need to take into account when doing this. So first thing that I do after the shuffle is I have the spectator cut off, I would say about half the cards. I instruct them to cut off half the cards and hold them in their hand as they think of the card that they're thinking of. Here you're going to do a little bit of a distance cross-cut force. I know it seems a little weird. I really haven't seen this anywhere, but it's something that I like to call a distance cross-cut force. You're not going to really call attention to this much, but the spectator is going to be left with the impression that they cut somewhere in the middle of the deck. So you have them cut cards, they hold it in their left hand, and here you're going to do the time misdirection. So you tell them, remember, sir, you could have thought of any one of those cards. Any one of those cards could have been the one that would be in your head right now, but I want you to think of it and say it over and over in your head. As a matter of fact, what I want you to do, in a moment, you're going to spell, for each letter of your card, you're going to spell 1 card from your half to my half. So if your card is the King of Spades, sir, you would deal KINGOF. You understand? Yeah, good. And it's very important that you kind of give them an instruction so that they're clear with the dealing process, because where we are magicians, and we've seen this about 1,000 times, to tell the spectator to deal cards in a certain way, they might not necessarily be comfortable or aware of that instruction because they probably haven't seen a card trick before. So you need to be very clear with that instruction and say, for each letter of the card that you're thinking of, I want you to spell it out with 1 card onto my left hand. So here the spectator, let's say again, they're thinking of the 2 of clubs. So they would deal TWOOFCLUBS. And of course that leaves 2 of clubs in your half here. They're holding on to half of the cards in their hand. And you reiterate that they really could have thought of any one of those cards. You ask him, sir, for the first time, I want you to name the card that you were merely thinking of. 2 of clubs. 2 of clubs. That's interesting because it just so happens that you dealt right to the 2 of clubs. So that trick is really not that hard to do, guys. You guys got a little bit of a hot card trick you could do anytime, anywhere. You just set the deck up, do a little bit of a false shuffle, right? Have them think of a card, shuffle 9 cards on top of that, and guess what? You have a killer card trick that you could do anytime, anywhere with a thought of card. They're going to misremember it as they thought of any card, they shuffled the deck themselves, and they stopped anywhere, they stopped dealing anywhere, and it just so happens to have been on the card that they were merely thinking of. So that's a little bit of a powerful trick you guys could do. So please do that trick. Don't think that just because it's not one of these fancy cuts that you might see done on Instagram that is not going to be the toast of the town. All right, so that's the thing. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to go figure out different ways to ingest a box of Reeboks. Yeah.
I took a sponge ball and was pulling him out of a little girl's ear.
Vivacious, foxy.
I'm looking for the goddess. Are you the goddess? Who is the goddess? The goddess is the woman, is a woman, is any woman, is all women.
A figure that is sexy, slim, tight, excellent legs,